Things have finally come to an end when it comes to the conferences. It's been, I don't know, E3 as a whole this year has been slightly interesting. I don't know. I feel that as the years progress and as I get older, there's a shift of interest when it comes to what exactly excites me about E3. It seems that this time around, some of the big announcements for games that made it to PC, for example Tekken 7, looking at the Gwent card game, I know I've got some friends who'll be interested in that. I wasn't interested in Gwent, but the interest that sparked as my friends saw finally there'll be a competitive Gwent game by CD Projekt, they went ballistic. The makers of Lords of the Fallen, God bless that game for being so terrible. Deck 13, they were once part of CD Projekt in the days of The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2. They are making another Souls-esque, Souls-like game, but it will be set into the future. I regret totally buying Lords of the Fallen and playing that game and finishing it. You can find my complete playthrough on the channel. My word, I hated that game, but they might do something different this time around. It was extremely interesting to see Mountain Blade 2. I am definitely going to play that game. It's just that I missed the initial Mountain Blade games because I guess during the time they released, I didn't actually know much about them. And now that I know how great they are, it's kind of sad that the games are now rather old. I don't think they aged pretty well, at least from my perspective, but I can still see that they're good games. It's just that I don't trust myself to pull through and complete the games if I were to get the old Mountain Blade games. But overall, E3, the whole talk about the different infrastructures amongst different consoles that's going to be happening, the improvements and enhancing the services of Xbox Live. Hopefully we'll see some development when it comes to GPU drivers with the new cards that will be that are released. For example, the GTX 1080. Hopefully we'll see some efficiency with the drivers on that front, with the 1070 as well coming out. And my big sights right now, looking into the hardware section of PC gaming, is the AMD 480. I believe it's the RX 480. And that might be the card I'll be getting this summer to replace the current card that I have, which is actually a R9 280X on my machine. So pretty much the hardware sections of the PC Gamer Show, the Xbox conference, was really cool. Bethesda didn't really do it all that much for me, but I could understand Bethesda fans were truly happy to see some of the games. I'm excited for Quake. I was just sad that they didn't show much about Quake. Ubisoft I totally missed. That's a conference I'm actually going to take some time to watch, probably during the weekend when I find some free time. Ubisoft and Nintendo. I believe Nintendo showed quite a lot of Zelda, which is extremely awesome. And I don't know. Besides that, overall E3 was fun. I believe it could have been better. I believe last year's, in terms of presentation, was better. But the problem with last year's E3 is that the results, the games that they showed when they did finally come out, most of them were disappointing. But if you don't consider that, which is really hard to not consider, last year's E3 overall for me was slightly better. So the final conference I'll be talking about is the Sony conference. Sadly, this conference occurred, I believe it was like 4 in the morning for me, so I didn't actually get to watch it live. I had to watch it archive the next day, and now I'm recording the day after that. And watching a conference live, I believe, is extremely pleasurable, in the sense that you instantly get reactions to your thoughts and you start typing down notes, jotting down notes. But when you watch it live, you've already, for example, I already saw on the news feed different trailers of games that I obviously knew were Sony games, so I already knew what to expect in the conference. So you could say I was spoiled in that point of view. But overall, the Sony conference was really cool. It focused more on games and game releases. I don't know. In terms of game release announcements, I believe they did it way better than Microsoft, because like I was saying in the Microsoft conference, there was a time when they were just showing game release after game release after game release, not explaining anything about the games. They're just playing trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer, as if they just made a playlist of short trailers that were less than a minute long. I don't think that's how you hype games, to be honest with you, because I've forgotten most of the games that were in that playlist of trailers from Microsoft. But at least Tekken 7's on Steam, so fuck them anyway. So they started off with a big symphony. They actually moved on to a theater instead of going to the main E3 building, which was across the road. And as soon as the symphony was playing, it was very deep orchestra music, I believe. Something you could hear in a Roman gladiator arena style movie, or in some Norse god movie with Vikings and all that stuff. Pretty much some Slavic and Central European stuff you could see in an ancient movie based in those areas. I was thinking to myself, with such a big symphony and such a big orchestra, this can only mean potentially God of War? That's the first thing I was like, why is there orchestra here? The only game with such hype and such deep roots in mythos is God of War. And lo and behold, it was freaking God of War. I've played all 3 previous God of War games, the main ones, and I never really got to play the ones that were, I believe, on PSP and PS Vita. I never owned one of those handhelds, so I never got the chance. But I did play 1, 2, and 3. Awesome games. I believe in terms of combat, they were really awesome games. It's just that the mechanics at the time I preferred, for example, Devil May Cry 3's hack and slash mechanics over God of War. God of War's mechanics seemed simplified, but the game overall was still hard. I believe the trick shot nature and the skill shot nature of the DMC franchise, where you actually have combos, chains, links, and stylish combos, that's what I preferred. Even with Devil May Cry 5, the reboot, I still prefer that system because it's actually as challenging as a fighting game, for crying out loud. But they showed God of War 4. It was awesome. Kratos is now old man, but the thing that shocked me, how can I say this? At the end of God of War 3, spoiler alert if you haven't played it, at the end of God of War 3, Kratos vanquished all the gods, and Zeus was destroyed, Heracles destroyed, every god was destroyed except Athena, who then tricked Kratos into combining all the powers of the different gods into the blade of, I believe it was the blade of Athens, or was it, I forgot the name of the great sword that it was, and then he used this sword to kill Zeus with all its power. But then the problem was that if this sword was strong enough, it had the power of all the gods and had the power to slay gods, it could also slay Kratos, so she betrayed him and stabbed him right in the chest. Now, at the end, it didn't really show whether Kratos was dead or not because there was a blood trail and no body. The sword was gone, Athena was gone, so Athena is the only Greek god that's technically left standing in the mythos of God of War. And now it seems like Kratos is old, so that means that he never died. Maybe Athena thought she killed him, but the betrayal didn't pull through. And he's teaching a young boy how to hunt. He gives the young boy a knife and is like, this was your mother's knife, you should learn how to hunt now, you're old enough to hunt. And Kratos is like, it's your duty to feed us, I'm hungry, go do something. You can't just be a little boy forever, you need to learn how to hunt, protect yourself, and be a man. That was cool, but I didn't understand why Kratos was still covered in white ash. The symbolism of the white ash was that when Kratos sold his soul to the god of war to vanquish my enemies, and I forgot, that was really the coolest section of God of War 1. But either way, what had happened was the god of war at the time, I forgot his name, gave Kratos the power to vanquish his enemies during a war which he was actually losing and was about to die. But then in return, the god of war drove Kratos into... Oh, it was Ares, exactly. Ares, defeat my enemies and my soul is yours. I remember that was... Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm spasming out. Okay, hold on. Fucking Ares. The catch, the prize of that was that he would drive Kratos into a frenzy and he would burn and kill his own family. But Kratos didn't know that. Kratos actually thought that one night he woke up and his house was in flames, and the god he saw an image, he saw a vision of Ares, and he thought Ares had claimed his family as payment for delivering the souls of his enemies to him. So he bathed himself in the ashes of his burnt family, his wife and children, and that's why he's coated white, and the red serpentine design is to show the blood that flows from his family into his veins, I would like to believe. Then in the end, Ares actually showed him that it was actually him who killed his family in a drunken rage. So it was quite a sad story. But now it's God of War 4 and is still in the same design. So I'm actually thinking that they were scared to redesign Kratos into his more natural, because Kratos was actually a very dark-skinned character. When I first saw him, I actually thought he was a black person, and to be honest with you, even if you were to look in the times of the Roman Empire and during the times when Greece was still in its prime, there were interactions with Northern African countries, so I would have believed it. At some point maybe Kratos was a traveler from Northern Africa, or maybe was just a dark-skinned person born in the Mediterranean and moved into the Greek army. But so I thought to myself, maybe they didn't want to redesign him because a black Kratos might not suit to a lot of demographics, considering not many people like black people on a more racial and social aspect of real life. So they kept him the same. That's why. I think they were scared to redesign. And also, if it's not a fear of redesign, then you could say that Kratos actually never moved on, and he's still emotionally scarred by what happened to his family and by Ares. The perspective of combat has changed. The camera is much closer to his back. It actually, when I saw the camera angle, I was actually thinking, wow, this does look like Hellblade. This perspective of combat, it's really different. I like the change. Like I said, I really had some qualms with the previous battle mechanics and the camera system in the previous games. It just felt a bit too arcadey for such a serious story, and the QTEs are back. There's no God of War game without QTEs, I understand this, but I think they could have found a way to battle cinematic epic big monsters without QTE events. I believe Shadow of the Colossus has already tackled that problem in the past, and that was PlayStation 2. They could have tried something with it, and Shadow of the Colossus was also a Sony Entertainment game. But I don't know. The battling mechanics, the foundation as a whole, is still there, but there are some changes. The boy he was teaching to hunt actually called Kratos father. Now that's the most confusing thing, because I thought that his family was burnt and killed by him in the past, so who is this new boy who's calling him father? That means he could have remarried after Athena tried to kill him. Could have remarried or found another woman who he fell in love with, and they could have had a child. But then since the mother's gone, I'm actually assuming the mother of this boy is dead. With the way Kratos is being overprotective of him and referring to his mother as mother, not by name, I would like to believe that the woman is dead, and he's now a hard, grumpy old man, because he's lost two families now. The only thing left to him now is this little boy. He's kind of like an old grandpa or an old uncle who's teaching a young nephew the ways of life, but the young boy is now looking at him as a father figure. It could actually just be an orphan child that he took up as maybe he failed to protect his mother. I don't know. That's pretty much what I got from God of War. Of course, there was a whole presentation on it, but in summary, that's what I understood. And then Sony came to share its condolences to the victims and the family of the victims of the mass shooting that happened in Orlando. There was a man a man who assaulted a bar in Orlando, which was designated as a gay bar, and I believe he killed 50 people. Or was it, of those 50, there were casualties, some were injured and some were killed. I don't remember the exact specifics. It's a tragedy. But a lot of people were killed that night, and I believe the man was then arrested and charged with manslaughter and mass murder. I don't know, I'm not a judge. It was really cool because no one had actually talked about this. I believe it was a tender situation, a tender occurrent event that no one really wanted to touch upon, just in case they might say the wrong things. But in this case, Sony stood up and they actually did it in public, which is quite cool. Hopefully there's no hidden agenda to that, because most people can take these tragedies as a chance to further their profits and their credibility as a company. Now people think, hey, Sony is the good guys, they care about people. But maybe that's just what they want you to think. Who knows? They announced a game called Days Gone, which seems to follow a bounty hunter in the post-apocalyptic setting, survival horror with zombies, companions, and I don't understand who you'll be bounty hunting in a post-apocalyptic situation, because everyone's trying to survive. So most likely people will be stealing and killing to do so. So unless you're gonna bounty hunt the whole world, then you become the world's biggest killer. Not too sure. After that, they showed The Last Guardian again. The Last Guardian, I believe, is from the developers who brought to us Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. People had been hyped about this game for a while in recent years, in the past 2 years, because of the fact that it was from the developers of Shadow of the Colossus and Ico. But also another thing you have to understand about this game is that it's been in development since 2006. It was actually supposed to be a launch title for the PlayStation 3 in 2006. Now it's June 2016 and we are, I believe, 2 years into the life cycle of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it's been 10 whole years with this game in development. So my question is then, what could they show us at this E3 about this game that could get anyone excited at all? The answer to that question is the release date. They actually have stated it, October 25, 2016. So after 10 years of development, this game apparently will be coming out. If they delay it into 2017, I believe that will just put the nails into the coffin and no one will care about this game anymore. They have to release it this year, and to be honest with you, I don't think it might be as good as people think it is. Maybe it's just me being cynical, but we haven't seen anything considerate in terms of gameplay. Unless they've got big surprises, I don't think it will be all that good. I never really understood the concept of hunting mechanical animals and dinosaurs, but I guess this, I believe it's called Horizon Zero Dawn, could do something, because I get this Tomb Raider vibe from it, but then I also get this Far Cry Primal vibe, but the game is third person. But then the animals and dinosaurs are actually robot animals and dinosaurs, and then they are animals that are trying to, they are robot animals that are trying to corrupt the other animals, calling them demons. I don't understand why. To me, the way I understand this game is that it's not actually set in the past. For example, it's not in primitive man or Stone Age times and these dinosaurs are just robots. What I believe it is that civilization developed to such a point where everything became mechanized and robots were created, and then came the fall of man. And then man lost all technology, hence returning to the caves and the wilderness. Like you see, these people are wearing animal skin clothes, which would make you wonder, if the animals are robots, where are they getting animal skin clothes? I have no idea, unless it's synthetic fabric or something. So people are returning back. It's like the life cycle of man has restarted. We're back in a Stone Age trying to rebuild everything we've lost. But then the robots that were there in the past at the fall of man, some survived and they're now acting like animals. I don't know why. Maybe they're developing into something more. I could crack my head on this game, but I don't think it's worth it. It could have potential. And with the way I saw the exploration, I think it could benefit from having a multiplayer component to the game. Just imagine going on wild hunts with friends in co-op, or fighting against other hunters who are trying to ensnare your game that you're trying to hunt. A multiplayer component for this game would definitely benefit it, and I believe if it's only single player, it will stifle its potential, and it won't be as good of a game as I think it could be. It won't be a great game, I think, but it will be a game worth playing. It's difficult to tell for now. I know very little about this game, but you can check it out yourself. It's called Horizon Zero Dawn. Then after that, a very interesting trailer came up. It's about detective style negotiations and about androids, should I say. The game is all about making choices that influence the outcome of each individual situation. You can akin it to the likes of Heavy Rain, I would believe, in terms of what style of game it is. Heavy Rain, and some other interactive games, I guess some games from the Telltale series, etc. That style of game where there's little, but they didn't show much action. What they showed a lot of was lots of interacting, lots of talking, lots of decision making, leading to different results of the end game. And the game is called Detroit Become Human, and it's quite interesting. The world that they built around it it's very basic and understandable. It's just a world in which mankind has developed, and they've developed robots and androids to service them and obey them. So, for example, robot butlers, robot negotiators, robot policemen. Instead of sending real people to endanger their lives, you can actually send robots to fight in man's stead, robot armies, different service robots that help the people in different ways and obey the people. But now, in this particular situation of the world, these androids, some are becoming self-aware. Some are realizing that instead of following the orders of human beings, we can actually make our own orders. And in this case, they are becoming more human. That's where the title comes from, Become Human. The Detroit part is actually the location. The game's based in Detroit, and the androids are becoming human. It's actually quite an interesting premise. And you, as the main detective, you can see that with all the choices you're making, this is the contradiction, or should I say the paradox of the game. You play as an android, but you make so many choices in your own stead instead of listening to orders from someone else. You might actually be the android that truly will become human and become sentient, become its own being. I don't know. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's a new announcement. I've never heard of it before. I believe this is the first time they've ever talked about it. And to be honest, I would be very, very, very interested to play it. Then after that, of course, everyone's been heartbroken about the fact that PT never happened. PT never happened because, first of all, Konami restructured. The CEO and the powers that may be changed the structure of the company, started letting go of certain people, started restructuring economically as well, and shifting focus into different styles of games instead of their main games that had been moving from time immemorial. In doing so, Kojima Productions, Hideo Kojima, also got fired, and that ended the production of Metal Gear Solid 5. Metal Gear Solid 5 is the last Hideo Kojima game, and Kojima Productions as a whole, as a company, that was done under Konami. After that, things changed. But during that time, Hideo Kojima was working with the director Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus, the actor from The Walking Dead, to make PT, which was actually supposed to be the playable trailer for the new Silent Hill game that they're going to make. It had a lot of potential. But that was cancelled because it was a Konami IP. They owned all the rights, so Kojima can't touch that. And only Konami can continue PT if they ever do choose to do so, but they might not. Only Konami can do Silent Hill because Silent Hill is a Konami trademark and copyrighted by them. So since that game is dead, the most interesting development is that Resident Evil 7 has taken the franchise to first-person view. There hasn't been a main Resident Evil game that's been in first-person that I know of. I played Resident Evil 1, 2, I played Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I played Code Veronica X, I played Resident Evil 4, I played Resident Evil, I believe it was called Type 0, I played Resident Evil 5 to the grave, I played Resident Evil 6, it was terrible. I've even played let me check its name. A very interesting episode one that that really got my attention, but I seem to have forgotten its name. It was Resident Evil Revelations 2. There we go. I had played a bit of Revelations 1, but I wasn't interested. But Revelations 2 was a bit interesting. It's as if they were slowly getting the formula of Resident Evil 4 and 5 back. But that's also a bad thing in the sense that they weren't making new progress in the life and hype of Resident Evil games. So Resident Evil 7 has gone into first-person view. I was like, surely this is the setting, the first-person view, the ambience of the game, this dark, shrouded mystery, the killer looking for you, trying to solve a mystery. This has to be a homage to PT. I think they saw the potential of that playable trailer that Kojima done with Guillermo del Toro, and they were like, we could make something out of this, and hence Resident Evil 7 came. Well, at least this first demo of it. This is a new step for the main games of the franchise. It's never been in first person before, it's never been this dark before, and it's never been so claustrophobic. There's potential for this game, but I have a thought. I mean, now the developer is taking inspiration from the previous creation, which was PT. I think it could potentially make the Resident Evil franchise scary again. There's a chance we might actually get a scary Resident Evil game, as scary as Silent Hill 1. That's already saying a lot, but I'm hoping that this is as scary as Silent Hill 1 because I played Silent Hill 1 as a child. I shat myself multiple times in that high school. That game freaked me out. There's a chance this might be it. I don't know how I feel though about the actual release. They're stating that the release, there are two conflicting views. The release could be June 2017 or January 2017, because in January 2017 there's some Resident Evil ambassador program. Whether that is just a beta or the actual release, because these are things that were information that was picked up from within the game, because you get to watch cassette tapes, VHS, when you're solving this mystery, seeing who was killed and how you will be killed and stuff. Like, it's really weird. But then also there's a tape saying June 2017. There's a mystery within this demo, and the demo went live to play. It's currently live now. As soon as the Sony conference ended, the Resident Evil 7 demo on PSN went live instantly. I believe across the world. By now it should be all across PSN. But I feel that the characters that they established in the demo actually won't be the characters of the main game. I believe the main game will begin with the main characters of Resident Evil 7 looking at, like, the game will start as if they had been watching the events of the demo the entire time, and then this will kick off Resident Evil 7. The reason why I'm scared that might be the case is because it might actually be like, oh, we were just watching the VHS of the cameraman, so the game actually isn't in first person view. It's just because we're watching a tape on TV, so it's in first person, but the actual game becomes third person. That's my fear. But for now, no idea. They went on to then announce PlayStation VR. There had been no release date as of yet. And they actually said the release date is October 13th, 2016, and PlayStation VR will cost $400, which is a lot of money, but VR it's been expensive, so it's a rich people thing. They're saying that on its launch there'll be 50 games available, and most of these games will actually be indie developed games and main studio developed games that are made specifically for VR, and there'll actually be some AAA titles that have already been released that will be ported to VR. An example of this, Fallout 4. I think they already stated that at the Bethesda conference as well. It's quite cool. I'm not a really big fan of VR. I've never used a VR headset. I've seen quite a few around, but not for gaming purposes, like different presentations, but I've never really been interested in it anyway, so maybe the day I try it is the day I'll gain some interest in VR, and maybe I'll try out some HTC Vive here with my Steam, see what's going on. Now, the problem with the VR presentation is that they were showing about four different games in VR. So they'll show the trailer of one. This is the Microsoft syndrome, by the way. They'll show the trailer of one game. First they were like, oh, experience this on PlayStation VR. We're like, okay, they're about to show us VR games. They showed one game, then that ended and they showed another game, then that ended a minute later and showed another game, then that ended and then they showed another game, right? And then they went on to like the fourth or fifth or sixth game. I wasn't keeping count. Then I saw a pilot in space shooting other planes in space. So I was like, oh, this is a VR game where you're in space as a pilot. This makes perfect sense to me. It's why not? There's some people who've always wanted to explore space, and now you can do it in VR. And then after that, the pilot ejects from his plane, his craft, into, first of all, he gets into a bigger aircraft, ejects, and starts shooting people. I'm like, oh cool, this is actually a very cool VR game. It looks a bit budget, it looks like if it were to be an actual game, non-VR game, it would be like a substandard game. But for VR, this is it's interesting a little bit. And then he gets back into his plane and starts shooting again. And then that trailer ended. And then it said Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I was like, oh my fucking god. That's terrible. If no one had written Call of Duty Infinite Warfare at the end, I was just going to think it was an indie developed VR game. The graphics were, I don't even know. They were so, maybe 40%. The gameplay looked boring. The reason why I was thinking the gameplay would be cool is that it would be cool to be flying around in a plane and then running around shooting things and then back in a plane in VR, because you're actually simulating it in real life. You'll be actually running around in real life with VR equipment, which would be cool. But as a Call of Duty game, really? Is that it? I thought it was a VR game. That's all I have to say about Call of Duty. It was really... Moving on. They are remastering Crash Bandicoot, which is actually very cool. I played all the Crash Bandicoot games in PlayStation 1, childhood games, really fun games, and it would be cool to get the new generation of kids into these games that I liked as a kid, so that maybe they can learn some of the cool things. I wouldn't mind, for example, if I had a younger baby brother or if I had a son, I wouldn't mind them playing Spyro, because I played Spyro and I thought Spyro was epic. Crash Bandicoot's one of those games as well, such as Mario, for example. They said they were going to remaster the first two games in Crash Bandicoot Warp and then rebuilding them into one complete package. It's quite cool. I don't know. I don't own a PlayStation, but definitely that's something I'd buy for anyone's child if I had the chance to. Then finally, my last piece for the Sony conference, the last thing that caught my attention, everything else after this, really Lego stuff and stuff, it didn't interest me, was Death Stranding, which is actually the next Kojima game in spirit of the playable teaser / Silent Hills project. In the game, the same actor from The Walking Dead, Norman Reedus, is there. I believe maybe, I never saw in the credits, but I would actually like to believe the director Guillermo del Toro might actually be working with Kojima with this, because he said, I remember there was an interview where Toro said that it's a shame that PT and Silent Hills never came to fruition because of the whole Konami problem and Kojima and his company group being fired. But he said he would be looking forward to working with Kojima in the future. I believe this could be the future. Maybe he's not working, but Norman Reedus is there. He seems to be the main character of the game. The game is a Kojima Productions game. Hideo Kojima is heading it. Nojima is vice producing it. I believe Yoji Shinkawa is doing the art. This is a true Kojima Productions game. The only thing left, I believe, is if they were to say that the sound is being headed by So Toyota, then it's definitely a Kojima Productions game, 100%. But I never saw Guillermo del Toro though. I never saw his name in the credits, but I put his name here just in case I missed it. I'm not too sure. There's not much else to say about the game. It was a very short trailer. It showed Norman Reedus waking up, and there's an bionicle or mechanical umbilical cord from him to a child. He picks up the child and is crying like with joy, I believe, that the child is alive. He survived with the child. He's on a beach with beached fish, beached whales, beached dolphins. It's as if all the wildlife in the sea was running away from the sea. There's something dangerous in the sea that they had to escape, and then they beached themselves in suicide. And then the baby disappears, and then footprints of the baby lead off Norman Reedus into the beach, back into the water. So this could mean that the danger that everything ran away from, including Norman Reedus, because he woke up beached as well, like the fish, but he had his child, so that means he escaped whatever danger awaited in the water. But the fact that the baby's gone and the prince lead back into the water could potentially mean that the baby is being held captive by whatever danger beached and killed all wildlife in the water. It's actually a cool premise, if I'm correct about it. And then after that, he stands up, he goes to the edge of the water as if to go back in and face his fears. He looks up and there are five beings floating in the sky, and they draw ever closer towards him, and it ends. Death Stranding. Oh, I used to call it Dead Stranding, but it's actually called Death Stranding. It's really cool. I hope to see more about it. I hope it's not a Sony exclusive, but I believe it will be. Kojima has a tendency of being tied down to one console and then forever doing games for that one console. It's really cool. But the thing that confused me before I go, the things that confused me is that when Kojima announced that he had remade Kojima Productions, and that Sony also made the announcement that they'll be working closely with Kojima to make his next games and hopefully give him a good partnership that Konami never gave him towards the end of his lifespan with Konami. He started tweeting concept art done by Yoji Shinkawa. It showed mechs, it showed robots, it showed people in robots, and it showed a blonde woman in a slick black dress. This trailer did not show robots, it did not show mechs, it did not show people in machinery, and it did not show a woman in a slick black dress. But the 5 beings that were floating in the sky were not shown in great detail, so maybe those could be the people in the robots being led by the woman in the black dress. Maybe. I have no idea. But for now, that's it. That's E3 for 2016. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you've done with all of them, thanks for listening to this one. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And if you haven't watched E3, please go ahead and do so. For now, I guess we can just close some tabs, and I'll see you soon.